My name's Steve Gosling and I'm a professional landscape photographer. I'm based in North Yorkshire. I've been an Olympus ambassador for several years now. I've been taking photographs since I was about 7 years old. I got into landscape photography when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I've always been a keen walker. I love the outdoors. I like being out in the landscape, stunning locations like the Lake District, for example. And I wanted to record some of the amazing sights that I saw when I was out walking. So it was natural for me to grab a camera and record that through my photographs, and so the two happily merged together, the two passions of outdoors, being outdoors in the open air and walking and taking photographs. Sure, it's on there. Taken at dusk in Glencoe, which was an 8-minute.
A lot can happen in those 2 minutes. The light levels can change, the sun could break through. So you press the OK button.
So you do all the...
This is a standard classic shot in this location, a good lead-in view, but I'm trying to pick out the contrasts rather than go for the colour which I normally go for, and we'll just see how it goes.
Stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now try that. Yeah.
You're letting me press the button.
Yeah, because it's then your photograph, not mine.
That's right now.
Yeah. No, I tend to move it too far.
Oh right. Okay. And then come back.
Bring it back.
Yeah.
If you can keep the information out of the shadow areas, you're going to reduce the chance of noise.
Yeah.
And also you're going to get better quality information at the highlight end of that.
Yeah.
My advice to somebody who wants to give landscape photography a go is basically go out there and try it. The only way that you'll find out whether it works for you is getting the camera, grabbing a tripod, grabbing some filters, get out in the landscape and photograph it. If that's what interests you, then do it.
Clouds, I really like looking at it, love it. Can't wait to...
Two things I would say. One is be prepared to get wet. I have this expression that if you haven't got wet, you probably haven't got a good photograph. What that implies is that I'm working on the edge of a weather system, either bad weather moving in or bad weather moving out. That's when you get really dramatic light. The other piece of advice is if you enjoy your sleep, don't become a landscape photographer, because I'm afraid it involves late finishes and very early starts. In terms of settings of the camera for landscape photography, then I tend to set the camera to the lowest ISO possible because I'm using a tripod 99% of the time. I always leave the camera set on auto white balance. I can always adjust that in post-processing. The important thing for me is to shoot in aperture priority usually or manually because I'm interested in controlling depth of field. So the setting of the aperture is my main determinant and the shutter speed is then determined by the camera. The most important facet of the exposure for me is to check the histogram. When I first started shooting RAW, it was the existence, the availability of the histogram on the back of the camera that convinced me that digital photography was the way to go.
No, I've not done any landscape. Just wildlife and a bit of street photography. And I've only been seriously into it for a couple of years. Hopefully I've got a lot more years. But I'm learning a lot from these other guys who are on the course.
One of the most important aspects of landscape photography for me is photographing what you feel. So when I'm out in the landscape, I'm trying to represent visually what I feel as much as what I see. So I have to be moved by the subject in front of me. It doesn't matter whether that's love or hate, but I have to have an emotional response. I have to have some passion about what I'm photographing. And that's really important. I always say to people, if you're not stirred by something, if you're not moved by it, how can you expect the viewer to be moved by the final image?